I'm a big fan of simple is almost always better. The more that you start looking at things, you start realizing that there's just lots of moments where things break down and they don't work as if you wanted them to actually work. We have a tendency to look at things and to look around and say, this is what I'm going to do because we learn from others. We learn from others that we actually see around us. And we tend to learn, particularly in this day and age, but I think it's true anywhere and at any time, is that we look at somebody else that seems really, really successful. And when we look at them, we draw inferences, and inevitably you'll see that, oh, they have this sort of complicated thing, or they're doing something in a series of different steps. And you want to mimic that. You want to say, this is how I'm going to do it. And you try to do it, and you inevitably fail, and it doesn't work out in the way that you thought it would be. And the reason why this is that you neglect that there is a lot of infrastructure almost always behind these other people that you are seeing, or other firms or companies or whatever, that there's almost always a ton of invisible infrastructure that you never see. So I've learned that repeatedly with this whole reciprocity project. So I'm building a platform, um, a platform to help researchers to deal with, particularly with, PhDs. They have to do research on a regular basis, deal with things like motivation and deal with things like, actually getting the work done. So it's fun, exciting, silly, goofy, whatever, right? Um, and I've repeatedly learned, and part of it is actually doing this whole, outreach, I guess one would say. It's advertising. I guess it's more like, to me, it's just like, this is the easiest way to actually do it, to do things like podcasts, or to do things like, simple videos, for example. Every time that I'm like, oh, I'm going to do something really interesting and, use all this equipment, or you follow what they say of all these folks that are online, and you use all this sort of fancy equipment. And yes, that works fantastic for some people that understand how to do it, that have the time, that, really, really, really care about that stuff. But when you do it, you'll realize, like, this is too hard. Um, or something fails and you have to do it 6 times over, which is fantastic if you are a movie producer, right? If you've got that in your blood, that is fantastic to do those kind of things, because you're going to get a perfect, the more perfect video or more perfect podcast, or, more perfect anything. And you realize, to get sort of perfection, when you're looking for that, when you're looking for something that is more, that is probably more appealing. So you realize it's very difficult to actually get to, and it requires a whole lot of infrastructure behind it. And so I simply just choose now to simplify my life and do things as easy as possible. Um, to not take anything too seriously. And yes, I'm very serious about it. It's just that I don't know what is actually going to work. I don't know what is, um, I don't know all of the different failure points. And because I'm already relatively busy, just having a family, for example, I've got 2 kids and a wife that I'm trying to balance. We both work. And then I also have a full-time job that I'm trying to do at the same time. Doing all those things is very, very challenging. And there's often moments where things just break down. And I wish it wouldn't break down, but it just does, because there's always something that happens. And I want you to sort of think about that, is how can you maximize impact? How can you, um, with just what you have, what can you do to make sure it actually works in your favor, and minimizing the amount of effort to actually go into it? That's why things like education, for example, actually work, because it's the simplest way. It's often the very simplest way to get things done. Or, that there is various different regulations. They've figured out that, hey, these are, people really deliberated and thought about how to actually get these things done with minimizing amount of costs, um, with the most amount of benefit. There's often that's the thought process in terms of doing these things. And there's lots and lots of thinking that goes on behind it. So I want you to sort of think about that. And is there is a tremendous amount of challenges that you'll face, complexities that you'll face when you want to do something, because you're going to make a really poor inference almost always by looking at other people, uh, or other companies or whatever you're trying to learn from, and try to draw some inferences, because inevitably their situation is not like yours. And you're going to look at it and say, well, this is the most wonderful way of doing things because that they seem so successful and all of that jazz, but you don't realize all of the stuff that goes on behind it. Right. So, I see this a tremendous amount when you look at, um, education, for example. Somebody's at a highfalutin university. You don't understand the infrastructure to actually get there, right? You don't understand all of that kind of stuff to actually get there. That's, the years of investment by, if kids are at a highfalutin university, you don't understand the amount of money that parents have paid for, tutoring and all this kind of stuff, like just amount of infrastructure that's hidden to everybody. And you sort of say, oh, that they're a superstar. No, there was tremendous amount that went on behind the scenes. It's only rarely the situation that the kid was a superstar in of themselves. That is very, very difficult to actually do by yourself. So I want you to sort of think about that. Anytime that you see things, just sort of practice. Okay, what can I do that is the most simple? So if something doesn't work out for you, right? Like you try to get something done and you really, really, want it to actually happen, take a step back and say, what is the most simplest approach? Um, what is the thing that I can actually minimize to get to where I'm going to go to and make sure it actually gets done, right? Like, for example, it's often take, a course that is proven. Um, there's a reason why there's like film schools and things like that, right? Like, or there's a reason why, there's SAT prep and, you know, GMAT prep and all these kind of courses is because they actually work. Um, they get you to where you need to go to. They whittle away and they find the ways where there's weaknesses, and they've worked at these kind of things. And I want you to think about that. Is that what's the simplest way? And it sometimes costs money. And it seems expensive at the time, but you do the financial calculation. And it's often much, much more cheaper to do those things. It's just very difficult to justify, um, early on. Right. And I feel that pain a lot. Trust me, I feel that pain all of the time with building a reciprocity project or the platform, because it actually does not make money at this moment. And so I always have to default to nothing of substantial, right? Like there's nothing I'm not getting rich off of, but I always have to say, okay, what is most simplest? What can I do? What are the little things? What is it in my life that I can actually do at any given time to make this happen? And doing this is doing a podcast when I'm driving into work or driving home from work or wherever. That is the easiest that I can do and live my life at the same time. All right. Take care. Have a wonderful day.